Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Yeah, we've had a technical hitch from GWOPs side. Unfortunately, I think the whole challenge was more on bringing in on board the speakers who are online to be able to join us. And it's taken some time, and we're really sorry for that. It's beyond everybody. My name is Euphrasia Luseka. I am a water governance and market systems development expert. Today, I wear the cape of a core thematic lead from the Rural Water Supply Network. And we'll be talking about the enabling water equity through innovative policy and regulation. And basically, we are not here today to dwell on what is broken, but we are here to build on what is working. I feel like most of the
Ben de onlara sansa küçüğünü miniyere. Ben de onlara.
Mhm. Yeah. All right. It's now working. Yeah. Yes, now it's working. It wasn't me, it was the mic. So um, we had a first question on the same. Shobana, could you help us to bring it up? All right. I'm being advised that we skip it because of time, and it did. I think it's a good decision. We were to open the session from Batsy, who works at a World Health Organization. However, she's also having some difficulties being able to join in. We're going to skip that bit. However, she's going to be able to speak with us towards the end of the session. So at this point, I'd like to get into the technical deep dive, and we have three presentations. The first one is from Esawaz, from Elizabeth, who's going to be talking about profiling performing utilities for good practice replication to inform regulation. And then the second one is going to be coming in from WASRAB in Kenya, the Water Regulatory Board from Kenya. They'll be targeting PROPUA by design, policy and regulatory innovations driving equity. And then the last one you'll be hearing from Catherine from WASAP, and she'll be talking more on the work that they have been doing on advancing sanitation regulation frameworks for inclusive urban services. I'd like to call them three on the stage. Let's give them a clap. Thank you very much. So, Catherine, the stage is yours.
Hello. Great, it's working. Hi, good morning. Hi. Yeah, just arriving in this lovely place. It's great to see so many faces here, familiar and new. My name's Catherine Gresham, and I'm working for Water and Sanitation for Urban Populations. For those of you that don't know, we're an international charity that was established around 20 years ago, and we work very closely with utilities and regulators in 6 country programs that we have. Today I'm going to present a piece of work that was published in June 2025 that Elizabeth also was involved in working on. And I'm presenting today on behalf of my boss, Sam Drabble, who couldn't be here today because he's at the UNC Health Conference, which is very exciting. So basically, this is a roadmap about advancing equity in sanitation regulation. So this is just a brief overview of the approach that was taken. So it's a document roadmap that was published, as I mentioned, in June. It was a WHO initiative in collaboration with SOS, UNICEF, and WASAP. And it aims to support countries to advance from little or no sanitation regulation to functional regulatory systems. But it also can be used in more mature systems as well, where regulation systems for sanitation have been in place for longer. And it draws upon experiences from countries in Africa, Asia, Europe, and Latin America, so very much trying to find global approaches. And it was developed primarily with the perspective of regulators themselves through key informant interviews. And it sets out principles and key milestones towards high-performing sanitation regulation. So the roadmap itself is in 6 areas. So area 1 is the first thing that needs to be done is to establish the current legal basis for service regulation. And area 6 at the end is the last thing that needs to be done. But the 4 areas in the middle, area 2, 3, 4, and 5, are not a timeline. They can be done at any time. So I think the key takeaway from this presentation is that we know a lot about what works in regulation in water, but when it comes to sanitation, it's a little bit more complicated. There's usually quite a large informal sector that's operating alongside utilities. So there needs to be a bit of flexibility in the way that institutional arrangements are set up, but there are systematic things that can be done to support effective regulation. So area 2 is to review and to strengthen the institutional and regulatory framework. So this is a roadmap that can be used by utilities in lots of different countries, and I'll come on to a couple of examples at the end. So within these different areas of the roadmap, there are particular guiding principles and illustrative case studies. So in this area 2, there are case studies from Mali, Nepal, and Peru, and then a set of guiding principles as well. In area 3, it's about developing effective, funded accountability mechanisms, including not just sewage sanitation, but for on-site sanitation and all types of non-sewage sanitation. Area 4 is about establishing and funding robust public data management systems, which really underpin regulation and service improvements. And Area 5 is about strengthening regulator and service authority capacity and incentives. Area 6, as I mentioned, that has to come at the end, which is to review, iterate, and to adapt to emerging challenges. And here you can see the illustrative case studies for this area are Malaysia and Chile, and then a set of guiding principles there around climate resilience, tariffs, and climate shocks. So I wanted to move on quickly. I've just moved through that very quickly, but there is a document available online. It's called a roadmap for sanitation regulation, and it's published on the WHO website. But I wanted to come on to a couple of examples where the roadmap has been implemented. So WASUP and SOS are absolutely committed to operationalizing the roadmap and rolling it out across Africa. This year, WASUP launched our strategic plan for the next 5 years with 3 big initiatives, one of which is rolling out regulation across Africa. And this roadmap will be a big part of that initiative. So it's something we're very committed to. And so this is an early stage in Tanzania where regulatory tools have been developed much more recently for sanitation from the 2020 onwards. And this was a case of implementation of an early stage. And we also implemented the roadmap in Portugal as well, which was at a more mature stage with regulatory tools going back to 1997. This demonstrates that this roadmap can be used across lots of different types of countries and at different stages of sanitation regulation development. And basically, some of the learnings that we took from the implementation of the roadmap are that it really needs high-level political commitment, as so many things do in the space that we work, to improving sanitation access. And it also needs targeted financial resource allocation, the ever-present challenge. And the enablers that were really outlined by the informants are to leverage national level campaigns as powerful drivers of sanitation improvements, which I think we've seen with ending open defecation, those sort of big national campaigns. It's really important to enshrine the human right to water and sanitation in the Constitution. It's a really important first step to increasing commitment to sanitation at all levels. And then finally, assessment and acknowledgement of the financing gap for sanitation. To provide a platform to leverage diverse forms of investment. So that was a bit of a whistle-stop tour. So if you have questions, I think Elizabeth and I can try to address them. And if you want to come and chat, I'll be around all week, and it'll be lovely to meet you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Workshop. Quite an interesting presentation. Going back to the other slide where you mentioned political commitment, it's quite interesting. You know, we keep on saying we want high-level political commitment. One thing that came out very clearly last week in Spain during the sectoral ministers' meeting by Sanitation Water for All was, what type of commitment do you need from the politicians? Can we really unpack the term political commitment? Similar to how we say we want an enabling environment, we want capacity building, but what exactly do we need on the same? And this is what you're going to be able to converse deeper with the rest of the participants towards the end of the session. So thank you very much. And indeed, this roadmap has been adopted by various countries, Kenya included. Elizabeth is going to be talking about others. So at this point, I'd like to welcome the CEO of WASREB, the Water Services Regulatory Board in Kenya, Richard Cheruiyot, who's going to be joining us online. Richard, can you be able to hear us?
Fresha, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Please proceed.
Yes, I can hear you now well.
Yeah, thank you very much. And as I've been introduced, my name is Richard Cheruiyot. I work for the regulator for water services in Kenya. It's called WASREB. And I will very quickly run you through really the efforts we're putting in place. As a regulator, as an independent agency to really ensure that this provision. My apologies that I think
it is actually the translation, CEO.
Deliver this successfully.
Yeah.
Slide, please.
Okay, technical team, could you kindly return us the slides page? Technical team, kindly return us the slides page. Please proceed, CEO.
Then I'll basically
Recording in progress.
Please proceed.
the network and the connectivity. So I hope I still a reform process that. Sorry. Hello.
You can proceed if that's the translator speaking, so please proceed
Hello?
and give a break in between as he's speaking.
Fresha, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Kindly proceed.
Hello?
Hello, we can hear you.
Benno.
I'm not very sure I can be heard. I don't know what I can do. Neither can I see the slides. Okay. I've gotten some indication that I can proceed. So just a confirmation that, we are creation of a reform process that started 20 years ago. We have a mandate to protect the interests and rights of consumers in water service provision. The law quite clearly outlines the powers that are given to us. Critical among this is really to set standards for water and sanitation service provision. We license utilities, both for water and sanitation services provision. We have a mandate for economic regulation, which is really the approval of water and sanitation tariffs, and of course, monitoring and enforcement to ensure that the sector complies with set standards. In terms of the landscape, the regulation landscape, we have a constitutional provision that outlines the Bill of Rights, which provides that all the citizens have a right to water and sanitation services. Our governance framework is two levels of government, one national government and 47 county governments. The national government has the responsibility of policy and regulation, while the mandate of service provision is vested to the counties. The two levels of governments have a role to ensure that they enact enabling policies and legislation to advance access to water service provision. In terms of regulatory substance, currently we have regulated water services reaching about 60% of the national population. The bulk of these are urban populations. The rural populations are currently still being served by alternative water service providers. We are making efforts to reach this constituency of consumers. The tariffs, in terms of ensuring that we progressively improve water services, provides for at least a 10% costs for capex. We have also designed indicators to track sector development. These indicators are drawn from policy goals and the Sustainable Development Goals. Utility assessment has also incorporated a KPI that looks at equity in service provision. But also in tariff review, we have a proposed tariff design where the tariff is designed in such a way that consumption by users is, by the poor is actually subsidized. In terms of the impact that we have realized in the last 20 years, access has improved over time, but however, we have to accelerate the same to get to our goals in the next 5 years. We also have a challenge now over time that there is resistance to tariff reviews. The issue of tracking sector development, we have enhanced this, and we have gone ahead to unbundle sanitation to include not just coverage, but means to what we would want to see as in terms of impact. So we have unbundled this to how utilities, for example, fashion themselves to be able to deliver on sanitation services, how they plan and how they finance sanitation services. And then, of course, we are getting into the space of, looking at alternative financing. In terms of our context, in the terms of right to water services, we look at accessibility, which is access, physical access, where the water is not supplied to premise, how accessible is that service? And then access in terms of information to the users. So that is measured. Affordability for us as a Kenyan standard that looks at not spending more than 5% of the household income in water services. And the issues of quality and safety, both for water and sanitation services, is measured against the Kenyan standard for the same. Reliability of supply, of course, the target is 24/7, but we appreciate that different utilities are at different levels, and therefore we measure that in terms of where they are. Just an indication of how the KPIs look like. We have currently 10 key performance indicators in the areas of quality of service, economic efficiency, and we use the three color scheme to show the performance ranges, where green is good performance, yellow is acceptable, and red is not acceptable performance. Just want to show in as a highlight a disaggregated performance in terms of ProPOA assessment. I did mention that this has a number of sub-indicators. One is the issue of having a policy in place. The other aspect is looking at how utilities have established functions to just look at issues of ProPOA services. Aspects of financing to align with, ensuring that financing is shared equitably. And, now equity in terms of the impact of that access. And the last assessment that we did this year showed those numbers. For example, that 75% of the utilities have a policy, 70% of the utilities have a function, 75% of the utilities have a ProPOA specific budget, and 52% of the WSPs have comply with the proportion of budget that should actually be aligned to their low income areas. So just to show that what we're doing in terms of ensuring equity for both water and sanitation services. I think in the interest of time, I'll leave it there. I had just a slide in terms of possible areas of strategic partnerships, and I think this can be shared. I want to thank you, and I hope despite the challenges that we had with internet, that I was able to deliver this. Thank you very much, and over to you, Fresha.
Thank you very much, and you did a very incredible job. On the same, you have tackled a bit that you tried to unpack on political commitment issues. It actually goes beyond the policy formulation. It goes up to even issues to do with resources allocation. Is it equitable? You even touched the bit that you're not talking a lot about and is quite a core area in terms of regulation in the sector, rural water regulation, which is quite hanging at the moment. Also the bit on how the tariffs are set. We are pro-poor by design, definitely. CEO. I actually come from the same country as him, so that's I'm saying we are pro-poor from the perspective of the tariff design itself, ensuring that the amount that is paid is not more than 5% of the household income. At the same time, what has been quite interesting from your presentation is the bit on the KPIs formulation, as well as the data that you're capturing per water service provider, and it basically meaning that you cannot be able to change what you do not measure. So the value of measuring has come out very well. Thank you so much, CEO. I'd like to welcome Elizabeth next. Elizabeth works with the ESAWAS team, the Regulators Association of Eastern and Southern Africa. So welcome on stage, Elizabeth, and you'll be discussing more on profiling performing utilities for good practice replication to inform regulation approaches.
proceed.
Yeah, thank you very much. As she said, I'm Elizabeth Nahimana. I work with SOAS Regulators Association, which is a network of water supply and sanitation regulators created to enhance effective regulation of the sector. So I'm discussing about what we are doing, about profiling high-performing utilities in order to promote good practice in service delivery for replication, for improved performance. As you know, our water utilities work in different environments, but they face quite similar challenges, including financial constraints, aging infrastructures, high non-revenue water, climate change impact, increasing demand, and technological change, as well as governance challenges. But despite these challenges, we've realized that certain utilities have been managed to exhibit or show consistent performance, good performance in the delivery of services. So what we are doing as SOAS is that we do benchmarking of utilities since 2015. We use a set of 10 key performance indicators grouped into 3 components. We have indicators falling in quality of services component. We have economic efficiency component and also operational sustainability. The ultimate goal of the performance benchmarking is not to name and shame the utilities, is to catalyze improvement in their performance. So in this exercise, a utility is compared to itself. How the current performance is compared to the previous period. The utility is also compared to other utilities and also against the industry good practices and standards. So what it helps is that we are able to identify good practices for replication. We are also able to identify persistent gaps in the service provision so that we may come up with interventions, approaches, and mechanisms that can improve the performances of utility. As Euphrasia said, if you can't improve you can't improve what you don't measure. If you don't know where you are, it is also not possible to improve what you are doing. So as I've said, from 2015, we've been able to benchmark. Right now, the participating utilities are 11 from 11 countries. We started within the SOAS region or regional region because the association is growing, expanding to continental level. So as of this year, we have 11 utility participating in the benchmarking. We also do the benchmarking of best performers. Like Kenya, they do the benchmarking. They come up with the best performing utilities. Zambia, and other countries, we also benchmark those best performing utilities, but also we look at the performance trend. So we've realized that certain utilities have managed to actually achieve good performance consistently in either or 10 KPIs or certain key performance indicators. For example, from the best performing utilities, we have Nyeri from Kenya, which emerged as the regional best performing utilities. It has a non-revenue water of 15%, while others are beyond 40%. So what then we are trying to do, we do not want to limit ourselves to benchmarking. We are now profiling the utility, best performers, both utilities and the CEO, to come up with what they are doing different that leads to good performance so that we disseminate those good practices to other utilities for replication. So from utility level, we are going to document and disseminate operational and management practices and strategies that are bringing the improved performance. We focus on technical, commercial, financial, and human resource management aspects. And we are going to also document, profile the CEOs of those high-performing utilities, because we believe that even the leadership has a key role in driving the performance of the utility. So we are going to focus on strategic vision and decision-making, organization culture, how the CEO has managed to interact with different stakeholders, resource mobilization. So those issues pertaining to leadership experience that has been able to bring about the good performance of those utilities. So, and we are going to disseminate those good practices for other utilities to learn from. This exercise is going to allow for peer learning and replication of good practices among utilities, but also inform the regulators on approaches that should be put in place to enhance the performances of utility. So at ESAWAS, we believe in a saying that if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. So also in terms of utility performance, we do not want any utility to be left behind. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Elizabeth. Today, when the MD of Luapala Water Company was speaking in the other room, he reminded me with regards to performance matters and how the regulators usually list water utilities from number one to the last. And he talked a lot of how they were in the bottom. This is one of the problems they've been having with regulators. Most of the time, they list, but they are not telling water utilities what they need to do better. And the bit of peer learning is such a strong component on water operator partnerships that I'm very happy that you've been able to highlight. That way you can be able to know as a utility which one is performing better, probably on non-revenue water levels or collection efficiency, our metering ratio and the like. So you can be able to know who's performing well and how can you be able to benchmark with them. So thank you so much for highlighting the same. We want to move on very fast to be able to catch up on time. And we are moving to a very interesting segment. It's called Regulators Hot Seat. So thank you very much, Catherine and Elizabeth. Please give them another clap as they leave the stage. The Regulators Hot Seat is going to see us bring on board three amazing speakers who have been in the sector, I think, all of my career life. And we've been learning great, and we've been learning great things from them. And I think this is strongly, again, part of peer learning from the experts themselves, the people who come before us. I'd like to bring on stage Dr. Graham Alabaster. I'd also like to bring on stage Mai Flo. Kindly give them a clap as they come on board. I'll introduce Graham and Mai as they get on board. Dr. Graham Alabaster is a public health engineer by profession and is UN Habitat's director of the Geneva office, where he represents the executive director of UN Habitat. He's responsible for the liaison with Geneva-based member states, missions, and international organizations. He holds a BSc in chemical engineering and a PhD in civil engineering. After an early career in academic research in the UK and Africa, he actually just told me today in the morning that he has been working in Kenya for a very long time. So indeed, he has been in Africa for a long time, more than 2 decades or so. Since then, he has been looking at various portfolios, including slum upgrading, environmental infrastructure, health and environment, water and sanitation, waste management. And in addition, he has been responsible for developing relationships with the regional development banks, as well as the private sector. The second person is Mai Flo. She's a Filipino national. She holds a degree in law and economics from the University of Philippines and has over 20 years of experience in urban water supply sector across the government, private enterprises, and international development institutions. And she's also the executive director of Waterlinks, a regional network established by ADB, that's Asian Development Bank, and USAID to promote water operator partnerships that foster peer-to-peer learning among water and wastewater utilities in Asia. The third speaker will be joining us online, and that is the Cabinet Secretary of Water from Kenya. His name is Engineer Eric Muga. He'll speak later on. So this is a conversation that we want to have. Very interesting questions coming on board. I'll start with you, Dr. Graham. GWOPA has been reimagining water operator partnerships, not just as a technical twinning, but as systems accelerator. With the JMP report, the Joint Monitor Program, showing widening gaps in safely managed services, how are WOPs helping utilities and regulators move from survival mode to system strengthening? And what's working globally to make WOPs part of institutional reforms and not just capacity building? Over to you.
Thank you very much, Euphrasia. Delighted to be here, everyone, and to listen to my previous speakers, to be with friends and colleagues here. That's a very big question, but I'll try, and I don't know how long I've got to answer, but I will try and attempt. The first thing I wanted to say, I mean, I've been involved, well, since the start of GWOPA, but long before then, in assisting utilities to improve their performance, both from water supply and sanitation. And one of the big things that's changed over that period has been access to better data. We all know about the JMP data that we've had for many, many years now. But of course, the biggest, I hate to use the word flaw, but the biggest drawback from that data is it's always been nationally data, and it has never reflected at subnational level what the discrepancies are and how we can understand. And of course, when you go to the most deprived parts of society, in the slums, and in some of the rural areas, those communities are not reflected in the data. So for many, many years, we worked closely with our JMP colleagues to try and find out what's going on. I mean, for example, in most countries, the only time you get a full picture of exactly what the levels of coverage are is when you do a census, which in most countries is only every 10 years. It's the only time when you fully understand those inequities. But now, because of all sorts of reasons, but because there's greater engagement, and we've seen from the regulators, there's been huge advances in this ability to collect data. So we do have a lot more ability to make good decisions, particularly at the local level. So data's one thing, and I mean, this is, for me, an optimistic area, because of changes, particularly in innovation and technologies, that's only going to get better. So on the one hand, we're facing the challenges of supplying these ever-increasing vulnerable populations, but we are having more knowledge on where they are and the levels of service. But, you know, I've sort of seen over this period as well these huge advantages. When GWOPA started off, it was essentially an exchange of best practicing. It was like speed dating for utilities, and it used to look at best practices. But now what's so encouraging, and we've heard it this morning before the speakers, is it's going much deeper into things like institutional strengthening, understanding what's behind those best practices and how they can bring management reforms in the utilities. There are still some areas that I think need to improve, and you know, one of those I think is this multi-stakeholder approach. I still don't feel that many utilities are still understanding that though they have the responsibility to deliver services on water and sanitation, they are also carry and bear some of the responsibility for things like the health issues related to water. You know, public health is a very basic thing. If you go to see my colleagues at WHO, who wait till people get sick to treat them from disease, we're the ones who have to prevent the disease in the first place. So I think there's a lot more that can be done by utilities to understand that multi-stakeholder approach. The other area, which again has been thrust upon us, which I think also is going to become so important over the next couple of years, is this issue of adapting to the challenges of climate change. We're going to see such huge changes in the direct impact on utilities at the local level, both from the water scarcity perspective, because of changing water resources, and also because of the resilience of existing infrastructure, both water and sanitation, towards climate emergencies. There are things that we haven't foreseen which are going to be quite catastrophic in the water sector and going to have huge impacts on the most disadvantaged. I also think that although the emphasis of WOPs has been mainly on water supply, it's increasingly coming into sanitation now. I feel that there's still some way to go. As we approach this climate fragility, we are going to see lots more elements of water pollution and stressed water resources as a result of poor sanitation practices. And where we have this situation where the water and sanitation responsibilities are split across different organisations, there's a bigger challenge. And it's not just the countries under development that are in that situation, even in the more developed regions. I was looking at some data from I've not lived in the UK for 40 years, but I always follow what's going on there. And one of the biggest challenges they have in the UK at the moment is through cross-contamination of water supplies because of combined sewerage and combined sewers with drainage systems in many cities. You've got situations now where the quality of water has decreased at the resorts in the UK. The quality is not safe. It's not safe to go swimming. And this is a basic fundamental problem related to the infrastructure not being able to cope with the climate extremes. It's, of course, a relatively easy fix if you have the money for it, but because, of course, many of the utilities are up against strict financial controls, the reinvestment in sanitation infrastructure, even in the UK, has meant that the cost of supplying water, productive cost, is much higher. So, you know, it's not, everyone's going to be affected by this. Anyway, I think I'll stop there, but I'm glad to see that it's going in the right direction. There's huge reforms. This idea of structural change in the utilities as a result of WOPs is very encouraging.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, and I think you're highlighting the fact that monitoring WASH agenda is not a destination. It's a whole process in itself. And I feel like still you're confirming that data could probably be the new oil altogether. And lastly, another thing that I've noted from your input is that we have a lot of data, and I don't know if you agree with me. Maybe we have a lot of data. And again, I don't think that maybe quality data is the problem at the moment, but then at the moment is, are we having useful data? You know? The information that we have in the sector is a lot, but are we probably using it? And again, can it be used again for transformation of the sector? I think these are questions that we need to ask ourselves a little bit deeper. To you, Waterlinks has helped turn peer partnerships into regional systems for resilience. And in Asia, where hybrid regulation models and performance-based contracts are maturing, what lessons can Africa be able to draw about building institutional frameworks that make partnerships bankable yet equitable? Over to you.
Thank you, Eufresha. So in the Philippines, I wouldn't call it hybrid regulation. There's actually just regulation for Metro Manila. So Metro Manila is the capital region, if you will, because when you speak of Manila, people think it's one city. But actually, Metro Manila is 17 cities. And this is the problem, why planning and coordination is very difficult. Kuala Lumpur, my friends who are from Malaysia, that's just one city. Jakarta in Indonesia is just one city, but Metro Manila is 17. So that's quite difficult. In respect of regulation of the water and sanitation operators there, again, it's a different case because these are private operators. In 1997, the Philippines decided to let out concessions to to the private sector. And both the whole city, the metropolis was split into two. You've got the east and the west concessionaires, and a regulator was established at that point to regulate performance of the two. Interestingly, at that time, the president and I was working with that administration on the government side. It was decided not to pass a law for such regulation to be put in place because it would have taken too long in Congress. Those of you who are in this kind of background, you would know how long it will take to pass laws in Parliament or Congress. So to avoid that, it was decided that we establish a regulator by contract. And it was the first of its kind where there was regulation by contract within the contracts of these two private concessionaires. Everything about targets and KPIs were put in place, and a regulator was created within those contracts. Fast forward to 25 years or so, and in fact, the regulator of Metro Manila is sitting right here in this room. So for those of you who want to know more, Lee is over there. This is the deputy regulator for Metro Manila. I believe an executive order was passed, and now there is more independence, if you will, of this regulator. But the result of this act of establishing the two concessionaires and the regulator has really achieved its promise, if you will. The services are quite good. Backtrack, before '98, services were poor. Only half the city was getting, not even half, but 24/7 was not the norm. Coverage was very poor at just about 70-75% of that era, when population has now really quadrupled since then. And non-revenue water was a whopping 67%. Today, so you can imagine across the metropolis, and we're talking of 4,000 million liters per day of supply. 67% of that was lost. Today, that because of the regulation, the stringent regulation and oversight that the regulator is doing, coverage is almost at 100% despite population growth. Non-revenue water on one side is excellent, under 15%. Admittedly, there are some issues on the other side. I'm not going to rubbish, so just Google who they are, but one side is not doing as well. But nonetheless, coverage is excellent, quality meets standards, and we're talking including slum communities, individual connections for everybody within the metropolis. So regulation has shown itself to really improve services for customers. I'd like to take a little bit of time to speak of the Malaysia model, because Malaysia is also quite exciting. In 2007, they too, and my friends from Malaysia are also here, they too went through a regulatory reform of the entire country this time, which is quite interesting because it was very ambitious. And in their case, it's not a full independent regulator, and this is where your roadmap that was presented earlier is really spot on. I was also involved in peer reviewing that you cannot import a one-size-fits-all type of arrangement. You have to take a look at the political structure of each country. And in the case of Malaysia, while there is an established regulator called SPAN, it was passed by Parliament, so it's a pretty good law. It is not fully independent in the sense that its decisions need to be approved by the ministry. So in their case, there is that extra step of approval at the ministerial level. But nonetheless, it has worked quite dramatically. If you look at the performance of all utilities, well, almost all utilities, again, I won't rubbish these others who have not yet met good benchmarks, but most of the utilities of Malaysia are performing, both on water and sanitation. In Malaysia, it's split. The services are split. Water is being provided by eight water utilities, but only one national sanitation service provider. But if you look at, again, the performance of all these utilities, they have really improved by leaps and bounds from 2007. So this really, you can see that regulation has an excellent role to play in pushing operators to do better. But as always, you cannot give the responsibility only to the regulator or to the operator. There must be a balance that is to be struck. The difficulty of most utilities in the developing world is politics comes into play. Tariffs are made artificially low, so the operator has no choice but to scrimp and cut and not invest. So this is, you cannot expect these utilities to perform if the tariffs are being made to be what they say affordable, but it's not really affordable. In the case of Dhaka, Khulna in Bangladesh, where we also worked on the regulatory side, the tariff of the city is at 10 taka per cubic meter, which is like 0.08 of a US cent. So how can you expect this utility to then, perform by leaps and bounds? The way they do it in most of these countries where there is no regulation and tariffs are really kept artificially low is that the national government steps in for the capex. So they step in, they put in all the capex, and they just use the tariff for O&M. But again, that then is a vicious cycle because then the utility has no incentive to perform because anyway, national government or state government will give me the funds to build X, Y, and Z. Or if not, it's not my fault because they want my tariffs low. So this is where we are. I'm really heartened by Africa, hearing what they have done in ISAWAS. I see my friends are here as well from ISAWAS because a lot can be learned by Asia looking to Africa in this case. So it's not the other way around because Africa is way advanced in terms of establishing regulators in this space. I only spoke of Philippines, and that too only for Metro Manila, and Malaysia. And there's no one else. I mean, everything else is self-regulated, if you will, or no regulation at all.
Interesting, quite interesting. Thank you for that. And that's quite an interesting conversation from the perspective of how the CEO of WASREB really hammered a lot of points that you have been able to share. We are trying to talk of increasing investments. We're talking about also commercial financing. We want the utilities to be commercially viable. But I think the word that you're trying to get is cost-reflective tariffs. How can we be able to have more cost-reflective tariffs? How do we subsidize water for the poor as well? And again, when you talk about private sector participation, how can we be able to come up with contracts that cannot harm the consumer as well? But then again, I also want to raise this point to the GWOPA team in the room, Shobana, Hezekiah, as well as Graham himself. I mean, if we're ever going to be able to have WOPs in enabling environment, we probably have to be more deliberate and understand that the 2-year duration is very little for us to be able to see change. Government processes really take time. Policy formulation, laws formulation, even like just the lobbying bit as well in coming up with costed roadmaps, for instance, they take a lot of time. So probably if there could be more deliberate action in supporting us to have more enabling environment activities around WOPs. I know you understand what I mean by enabling environment. We'll unpack it later. I've been told that the Ministry of Water team from Kenya cannot be able to join, and that's I've actually given you more time to talk. You've taken up the minister's time, but you're going to proceed to the second question. Graham, the question goes, you sit at the intersection of solidarity as well as structure. What have you learned about the enabling conditions, the laws, the policies and mandates that make WOPs to thrive? And how is GWOPA shifting the narrative from aid to architecture? Over to you.
Thanks very much. Another very interesting and long question. I mean, because I covered some of the stuff in my earlier response, and in the interest of time, I'll be a bit briefer. I think one of the most exciting things is that the GWOPA partnerships are moving towards now is to tackle some of these really challenging issues. For me, one of the things that's really, I'd say, is very critical is that I feel that we are still not understanding the changing demographies that are happening as a result of the global challenges that we're facing. Now, because in many parts of the world there's conflict and there's climate coming together, we're finding huge population shifts, and we're finding the inequities of service provision being affected by moving populations. So we're having to deal with not just the march of urbanization, but we're having to understand how that's been exacerbated by these other variables. And in many places, we're finding it so difficult. I think the issue of the inequities is probably the thing which I think is the most challenging thing to tackle as we move forward. So I think that the GWOPA partnerships have to move in these areas and have to understand, and in many cases, a utility, the information it will get on those factors is not information that they usually access. So they need to understand and work with their national governments, and in cases of regional governments, to understand what those issues are. So this is an area that the WOPs have to start to look into, because it's going to affect people so effectively. The other areas which I think are very interesting, I was there when the mobile phone payment system M-Pesa was rolled out in Kenya all those years ago, and that was a first globally. It came before anywhere in Europe or the US. And it had such an impact on ability to pay for services. And we saw that was adapted in all areas of life, but including for payment and access to water, had a huge impact. So I think there's lots that can be done in that particular area to improve the revenues of utilities. I always remember when I first went to Kenya in the late 80s that, the then manager of Nairobi Water said to me, but, I've got this urban population of low income, which is 40% of the population of Nairobi, and I'd love to sell them water at the same price as I sell to the rich people. They're currently paying 10 or 20 times. So it's tools like this that are going to enable those things to happen. It's going to enable changes, huge changes, that will enable us to leap forward and supply and overcome these inequities. And there's some other areas which I think are also very interesting. We've been doing some work looking at advanced ways of understanding network losses. We're currently working in Mexico City to look at using quantum computing to model the leakage losses in Mexico's system. And what's so exciting about that is that in order to, as most of you know, in order to understand where the leaks are going, you need to work out where you're going to put your meters and where you're going to put the sensors. We're developing algorithms to look at where you place the sensors to keep the cost of putting that system in as minimal as possible. So I think the point I'm trying to make is there's a whole range of opportunities where high tech can come in, and in many of the countries we can bypass these normal challenges that we faced in other economies. And I think that, it's the WOPs in these areas which are really going to make the difference, moving beyond just the twinning that we heard about earlier. So I think, if you want, in a nutshell, I think the revenue collection is probably top of the list in terms of improving efficiencies, and then also the system efficiency issues with regard to looking at losses. You've seen that many utilities are still reporting high levels of loss, and you know what it's like. If you're not recovering your O&M, you almost have to pack up shop because it's not possible to continue. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You raise a very important point on digitalization generally and water operator partnerships. And I would say the angle that you're also bringing is, for a long time, we usually perceive it to be more on efficiency. But then again, from a policy perspective, we're also seeing the value of accountability through digitalization. We're seeing the role of transparency as well. And also generally the ring fencing of finances and all. And this is how generally to just improve efficiencies better. So to the last question to you, the JMP report shows that urban inequalities are deepening fastest in informal areas. How are utilities in your partnerships designing regulation and incentives to serve those communities? And what does that mean for the future of Propua WOPs?
Okay, thank you. In fact, since I'd like to marry regulation with WOPs because it has not happened. So our WOPs are really on the operation side, technical and the like, but we have not had any WOPs in respect of regulation. We somehow touch upon it a little bit, but not directly. So I would like to see, with GWOPA, some more support on exchanges amongst regulators or those people who would want to know more about regulation. We worked, Waterlink specifically, funded by the Gates Foundation, worked on attempting to establish regulators for water and sanitation services in Nepal for the whole country, Bangladesh at the local level, specific to sanitation only, and the state of Orissa in India for the whole state, for both water and sanitation. A lot can be learned, as I said, by Asia on the examples that ISAWAS, for instance, has shown us. And it would be great if we could have some exchange, some form of regulatory WOP, if you will, amongst these entities, because then we get to learn. We attempted this during the Gates Foundation work that we did. We brought in several of our colleagues from ISAWAS and the individual regulators from Africa, and it was very well received. It was in Nepal, and we had, I believe, we had 7 or 8 countries of Asia that were participating in that, and it was very well received. A lot of people want to know more. So again, I say, a lot, and I emphasize, regulation really can result in improved operational efficiencies. Again, the regulator is there to balance the interests of both the public to not pay so much and the operators themselves, so they are not holding an empty bag because of the artificially low tariffs. So it will also remove politics from tariff setting. On that note, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Please give them a better clap as they call back on stage Catherine and Elizabeth. Please join them. We want to get into a 5 minutes Q&A from the team. Any questions? Around maybe 4 questions could be fine. So Catherine, Elizabeth, please come up. And we're now bringing it to the floor. Any questions for our brilliant speakers? We have one here. Any other? Here? Any more? Okay, 3. Okay, 4. So we'll start with the gentleman in a cape. Please proceed.
Yeah. Is it good afternoon? Yes. I'm Engineer David Foney, Chairman Board of Governors for Guma Water Supply. I have 2 observations or questions. One is regulatory, in the sense, in Sierra Leone they have 2 agencies. You have the Water Electricity Commission, and you have the Water Resource Management Agency. I'm finding it very difficult to distinguish between these two regulatory bodies. And virtually what they do is levy a percentage on operators as their own fee for running the entity. That's one. I don't know how those two could be merged, or if there's a better way of improving them. Then the second question is for the non-water revenue. I heard the doc was talking about doing a model where they could detect losses. I don't know whether it's just in its starting stage or pilot phase, or it has been done and proved. Because if that is not done, back home, okay, Guma already supplies water just to the city, the western part of Freetown or Sierra Leone. 40% of the treated water is wasted, either because of long connections from the mains to the dwelling houses. When there's a water supply, people get in there, chop off the pipes, and there are a lot of losses. And also there's a lot of bypassing of meters. So these are all some of the implications which is responsible for the delay or the non-revenue collection of the entity. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the first one, Elizabeth can take it. The second one, Dr. Graham is going to take it. We have been able to see a lot of non-revenue water management models that have actually grown through the years through water operator partnerships globally. Thank you so much. The second question, please give the gentleman in front of you. Yeah.
Hello. I'm from Mongolia, working in the Water Regulatory Commission. His name is Baimuk. And I have one question and one comment for me, because it's like very much similar. You're discussing is like we are facing is same problem, which is like most of the Asian countries, because it's like we have is like very low price in water price, but it's like as our government frozen is like our whole year is like how we regulatory cannot aid this change this like water price, because it's like Prime Minister is like added Islam law. It's like until 26 they didn't know cannot change it's like water prices, because say this some political teams. This one is like same like our country. Another thing is like very much similar, because it's like water quality, and it's like additionally we have problems with water is like frozen problems. Something is like prices is making as very high after this COVID-19. This water inflation, something is very high, but it's like water operators losing money, and it's like now it's like human resource also salary is very low, because it's like water prices low means is the companies not making money. Also it's like they don't give handle is like salary for these workers. It means it's similar problem. It's means it's like my question is like in metropolitan Manila, 17 different operators, but it's like this prices, water prices, trips is similar each other, or it's like different one from another? Is one question. As like my comments is like we have is like Mongolian water regulation started working now only more than 10 years. It means it's very young compared to it's like other country. It means we need to exchange experience more countries like Asia. It means it's like if you have time, is something is we change. It's like we have is online some conference or like workshops and ask so many questions for you as something is like it's possible and
Thank you.
thank you. It's so many things, but it's like time is very limited.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
And this is why I think this Congress is happening, for us to be able to listen to these successful stories and learn from each other. So thank you so much for the same. And that first question is very, very interesting. I wish we had a water operator in the room. And we do hear from Esther. I mean, as a customer, I expect a service to be delivered. And if the utility is not demand responsive, if you're not providing the service, then why do you hike the tariff when the mistake is on your end, you know? Have you ever thought about it? Probably the water service provider is not supplying water even maybe thrice, or they're only providing thrice in a month, and then you want to hike the tariff. So whose mistake is it? Is it the customers or is it the water service providers? So that whole juggling between managing internal operational efficiencies as well as managing the commercial viability of the utility. Can I just have one question? Don't make it two, and make it very short here.
Okay, I'm Nderi Gay from Mauritania. I have just one question. I want to know if you have, in relation with the Association African for Water, Afwasan. Afwasan. Okay, thank you.
You are answered. Okay, to the gentleman here. Okay, here, next. All right.
Thank you, moderator, and the panel. Really, mine is not a question, but some observation and some giving a bit of experience. Because when you talked about regulations, enshrinement in the constitution of the laws and what have you, I'm Stephen Basaliza from Uganda. I'm a board member of the National Water and Sewage Corporation, the governing body. I'm a member of the Uganda Human Rights Commission. And when you see water is a right.
Yeah.
Then one time I was a legislator. I was a member of parliament some 15 years back. I have a lot of experience. Now, when I talk about regulation, it is not totally enshrined, the laws, like Madam Presenter was saying. Should it be directly in the Constitution? Yes or no? But in Uganda, it is talked about, and then water management in Uganda are recognized, but there are other acts of parliament that are enacted. Though not totally enshrined, but they are acted by parliament. There is a Water Management Act that is responsible for management of water. Then there is a Water Act which provides management of water resources, constitution of water, sewerage authorities, and evolution of water supply and sewage undertakings. Then there was a water statute requiring permit for wastewater, discharges, drillers, and builders. We also have the National Water and Sewage Corporation Act, which governs the biggest water utility of government. And these ones are debated by parliament. They keep on and are raised. So in totality, government and parliament plus other stakeholders take part in it. So it can be there under amendments, but there is also a disadvantage of enshrining something, sometimes that may not work, and it does not allow flexibility. So there are some regulations that keep on and on as issues rise through regulations of parliament and other actors. So that was my contribution I wanted to say, but it was a very good idea. Can be in the constitution, but many constitutions have had very good laws put there, but you don't implement it and put them aside. I thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. And that is why some governments have put it in their constitution, because the human right to water is in terms of implementation of the human right to water, the duty bearer, the buck stops with the government. So it being in the constitution, it really helps for now it to now be absorbed in other components of the law. And besides the law itself, it also helps for the government to be able to now ensure issues to do with like equitable water supply and the likes. For instance, even at national level in terms of their budget formulation processes. So it being acknowledged up there is very supportive to the functions of the government in various other departments. Thank you so much. There's a lady who raised her hand on the other side. Okay.
Thank you very much. Interesting conversations from the panel. My name is Chola. I'm from Zambia, the Zambian water regulator. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to get feedback on two issues. The first issue, I think, was touched on, the issue of WOPs and enabling environment. For me, that is the missing link that I see in most WOPs, and it actually challenges the sustainability of WOPs, because when the practices are learned by these utilities, mm-hmm. as soon as the WOP ends, they slowly start to degenerate back into their old habits, mm-hmm. because nothing has been institutionalized. So I want a comment on that from any one of the panelists. Second is the link between WOPs and data. Again, I think I want to draw from what Maya said. Regulators collect data. Elizabeth explained the issues of benchmarking and all that. But the WOPs are also doing their things. They are getting results. Sometimes those results don't get to the regulators, and so they don't get to be reported on. Yeah. How can we enhance that linkage? Thank you.
Thank you so much. I feel like you're ululating from your first input, because this is essentially why we created this session altogether. We are looking at sustainability of WOPs. It has definitely been the missing link over these years. I have implemented them for, I think now, almost a second decade. And indeed, if we continue transforming water utilities, and it's not more of hand-holding processes, but how do we probably get to a level where we are talking of now facilitation in terms of now making them to be stronger, like a baby, beyond crawling or, beyond now the weaning, now taking them to the weaning process. You definitely need to anchor our agenda into policies and regulation. What we even saw from the example of the CEO from WASREB in Kenya, where he indicated it's beyond coming up with a WOP on PROPOA agenda, but now how do we come up with key performance indicators to ensure that we are measuring the same in water utilities? And this now comes to the bit of behaviors, as well, to continue keeping that behavior going on to improve the ability of water utilities. So thank you so much. The data question will be answered by Catherine. So I hope everybody can only speak for 1 minute.
I don't think I will answer the data question because I don't think I'm able to. But I just wanted to make a comment about, two comments. One about non-revenue water. I thought it was really striking to see the data from SOS about the high levels of non-revenue water across their water operators. And I think it's a really interesting area. I think it's been particularly understudied, and it's an area that's particularly technocentric. And I think there's a much more space to bring in more political and economical angles when looking at non-revenue water. I also just want to mention, we're talking about water equity, and we haven't talked much about women or children or people with disabilities. Just want to make a note about these are the people that are really significantly disadvantaged through low service levels. So just to bring those people into our mind while we're having this conversation. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mai. Okay, Elizabeth.
Yeah, thank you. There was a question from the participant from Ghana saying that they have a water resource management regulator and from Sierra Leone, sorry, and the energy Sierra Leone in a water energy regulatory commission, something like that. Okay, yeah, thank you. He wanted to know the distinction. To answer this, I think the difference between the two lies in which services they are regulating. So from the experience from Rwanda and also some other countries in Africa, like Sierra Leone, we have these two regulators, water resource management regulator and what we call generally the economic regulator. So the water resource management is responsible for overseeing the use of water as a resource. How the different uses of water are regulated to ensure that the water as resource is well managed. So it mostly to do with water abstraction for different uses. But when it comes to service provision, maybe speaking of water abstraction, even the utility, they are regulated by Water Resource Management Commission or authority because they abstract water to supply. But when it comes to water supply services, we have that economic regulators. That is the distinction. One is responsible for water resource management. The other one is responsible for water supply service provision. Whether to merge them or have them different, it depends on the context of the country and what they want. What is important is to make sure that the policy or the law establishing whether that one regulator or both regulators should be well clarify the responsibilities of each regulator to avoid overlapping of mandates or inactivity because there are duplication. It should be well enshrined in the law establishing those regulators. Yeah. There was also another question about whether regulators work with AFWASA as Water Utilities Association. At ESAWAS, as I mentioned when I presented, ESAWAS is a network of regulators. AFWASA is, I can call it a network of water utilities, right? So since last year, ESAWAS has established what we call Service Providers Regulator Engagement Platform to bring both regulator and utility service providers together to discuss about different challenges pertaining to the sector and come up with solutions, not like a utility and regulator relation, but to sit together and to work together. And ESAWAS has an MOU with AFWASA to work together to strengthen, to bring forward the sector performance in general. So we really work with utilities to ensure that the sector perform well.
Thank you. Yes, please.
I'll be very brief. On the issue of the water loss modelling, it's still at the pilot phase, but it can be applied. Anybody who's interested in knowing more about that, I'm speaking about it in a bit more detail at one of the other sessions, but please contact me because we're always interested if a particular utility wants to try the approach. It can be used, Mexico City was a bit of a challenge, of course, to start with. It can be used in locations of different size. So it can be used in even a smaller town without any problem. So, but you do need some basic data. You do need some basic data on the network, which is a challenge in many places. if you haven't got good asset management. But it's a very simple model, and it's about efficiency in placing the sensors, okay? But it also provides a lot of information on, you know, the political aspects that you have to tackle, because it's always difficult that you haven't pointing fingers. The second issue on the sustainability of WOPs, I think it's important that we keep really topical, new, leading edge research in WOPs. I think there's a tendency for it always to go back to the same old thing, and I think we need to bring in new elements that the idea of this bringing in quantum and digitalization of services, looking at revenue, looking at the multi-sectoral approaches, I think are very important. So I think that's one of the ways to keep WOPs going, to keep bringing in the innovations and the new ideas. I'll stop there, thanks.
Thank you, Mai.
And finally, my friends from Mongolia, I'll talk to you after. I'd like to rope in my friend from the Metro Manila Regulator's Office, right there. But in respect of all of these issues of financing non-revenue water, because at the end of the day, you need money to address non-revenue water, I really like the structure that Malaysia has, where they established a water asset management company and removing the responsibility of capital infrastructure for large ticket items like bulk water supply treatment plants. They moved it out of the responsibility of the utility. This asset management company will then be the one to finance everything. The utility pays the asset management company some amount for them to be able to repay for the structure at very good concessional terms. And that leaves the utility to just deal with operations and maintenance cost. So to address that, in a sense, this is targeted subsidy on Malaysia side. On the Philippine side, it's not, the subsidy is across because the tariff is progressive. The first 10 cubic meters is very low, and then it progressively increases because it's volumetric. Every 10, as you consume, the tariffs go higher. So in this sense, the subsidy for the first 10 cubic meters is there. Unfortunately, it's not targeted because everybody enjoys the first 10 cubic meters, which is very, very low. And then, so that also doesn't make sense. So that's an issue also for regulators. How do you target it to only those that need it? So yeah, in terms of wanting exchanges, we are more than happy to exchange with Mongolia. And to also, I will rope in my friends from ISAWAS because they also have a lot to share. On that, thank you.
Thank you so much. So let's give them a clap. I want us to just gather together and we do one question for 2 minutes. Yeah, thank you so much, the panelists. Yes, you're free to leave the stage. Thank you. I want us to just gather together for 1 minute and answer one question together. It's very simple. It says, what practical steps can GWOPA take to enable stronger water operator partnerships and accelerate SDG 6, considering climate resilience, equitable access, and sustainable finance? So I just want you people to discuss that in 1 minute. I say it again, yeah. What practical steps can regulators and operators take to enable stronger water operator partnerships and accelerate SDG 6, considering climate resilience, equitable access, and sustainable finance? So just gather together and give us like 3 answers. Very easy. You can talk to the person who's next to you very quickly. Okay, 30 seconds. Just 1 minute. Let's let them finish. Yeah. Okay, 5 seconds. And we are done. Can we hear from here? Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Please, let's listen to him.
Okay. So when we talk about inclusive policy and regulation, I think we should also consider the participation of workers, so that that gives a kind of ground work experience, knowledge, information that actually can help the policymakers also, or the people representative who are there in the discussion process, to come up with very inclusive policy, and that benefits not only operators but also workers as well as government. So we should also think of the participation or inclusion of workers while we talk about innovative policy and regulation.
Thank you very much. You're echoing the words of a gentleman who just sent me a message here on his views on the session. He's called Chitechi from Kenya. So thank you so much for the views. They're similar to his. He's the president of the Water Association of Water Workers in Kenya. Another view here.
Hi, I'm Lee Britannico from the Metropolitan Water Works and Sewage System Regulatory Office from the Philippines. So to answer the question, one thing really, the data that we collect for the key performance indicators, the business efficiency measures, the policies, everything, it all basically boils down to communication between the operators, regulators, and also of the customers. So the only way to consistently or continuously improve is to have constant communication, open communication, and basically benefiting everybody. So it's cliche to say to be honesty is the best policy, but basically this is it. This is the best way to provide good service is to be honest with the services and what we need. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Brilliant. One more.
So I think we are from Mongolia, the regulatory body, and as well as the operator is here. But I am the more from the funding organization. So we talked about just shortly about two solutions or potential practical steps that we can maybe apply to for the sustainability of the sector is more coordination work between within the organization, regulatory body, and the operators as well, for changing experiences, good practices, and as well as the problems, you know, at a daily basis. And regulators would like to be more participating in WOP programs if they're in future any, and I think they are for the first time participating in such conference where all the operators are here and also some regulators.
Thank you. Thank you very much. To the online participants, I'd like to say that unfortunately cannot be able to see your comments, but you're going to gather them and you're going to be getting back to you. We have seen your email addresses as well. So we'll continue keeping the conversations going. At this point, I'd like to bring this session to a close, and I'd like to invite Batsy, who's from World Health Organization, and she will be joining us now. Batsy, over to you.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for this very interesting discussion. I know that I'm standing between you and lunch, so I'll keep it very brief. I think a lot of the points that were mentioned today, particularly in respect to regulation, the environments in which WOPs are working really speaks to a broader issue around governance. And this is part of the reason why earlier last year we were talking about the need for political recognition of the role that regulation brings to the sector and what that means when regulators have the space that they need to be able to act and actually make sure that they're working effectively with operators and with utilities to improve services. So I think as we're thinking about how we can improve WOPs, how we can improve regulation, the political space that we're operating in also needs to be factored into account, and that needs to be conducive. The other thing that I also just wanted to highlight is that there's no blueprint that's always fit for purpose. Chola was asking earlier about why some WOPs are not sustainable in certain environments, but we can also be asking the question about why some regulatory models that we thought were blueprints have not been working. We can think about what's happening with the respective regulatory model in the UK now that is actually being reviewed for various reasons. And so as operators, as regulators, we should always rethink the way we work. It's always important to question whether we're still meeting the sectoral objectives that we said we want to meet, but also to be thinking about whether we're being responsive to some of the issues that we are facing, climate risks, urban growth, equity demands, etc. So I just want to leave us with this message. Platforms such as these, this global conference, are really, really useful for learning. But as we learn, we should also be willing to look internally to reflect and adjust where we are going as regulators and as water operators together. And with that, I want to say thank you.
Wow, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Batsy. I also want to appreciate everybody for attending this session. We had several participants online as well. So thank you very much for taking the matters to do with enabling environment for water operator partnerships very, very seriously. And thank you for the good work that you continue doing in the sector on the same. The only bit I'd like to mention as I come to a close is our next step for each and every person in this room and also outside is let's be able to transform today's insights into action. Thank you very much and have a pleasant day.